As long as you're under my roof, you'll sleep in separate rooms, my dad said. I looked at him, then at my 17-year-old brother's closed bedroom door, where his girlfriend was currently sleeping. Okay, I said, then we won't be under your roof. For 22 years, my dad was my absolute hero. He was the kind of guy who would drop everything to help you change a tire or fix a leaky sink. But his help always came with an invisible price tag: total compliance with his rules. I had always been the golden child, his perfect daughter, Chloe. That dynamic worked perfectly fine until I planned my first major vacation with my boyfriend, Mark. We had been together for over a year. He was my first serious relationship, and we were finally taking a trip together. The logistics, however, were brutal. Our flight was scheduled for 6 in the morning, which meant we needed to be at the airport by 3 a.m. My apartment was a solid 45-minute drive away. Mark lived even further, but my parents, they lived exactly 20 minutes from the terminal. It seemed like a no-brainer to stay there the night before. That was before I found out what my dad's version of a favor actually looked like. We were sitting around the dinner table on a Sunday when my dad made the offer. He insisted we sleep at their house so he could personally drive us to the airport. "It'll save you $50 on parking," he said, beaming with that classic dad hero pride. I was thrilled. It was incredibly generous, and my mom was already talking about making us breakfast to go. But then, right as I was taking a sip of water, he dropped the condition. "Of course, Mark will be in the guest room down the hall," he stated. Not a question, a mandate. I blinked. We were two consenting adults in our 20s who had been dating for over a year. "Dad, we're just going to sleep for a few hours," I said. He shook his head, his tone turning instantly cold. "You are not married. You will not sleep together under my roof. Those are the rules." I could have accepted that. I really could have, if it weren't for what was happening right upstairs. My younger brother, Jake, is 17, and at that exact moment, his 17-year-old girlfriend was upstairs in his bedroom, with the door closed. They regularly had sleepovers, completely undisturbed. My dad never said a word. I looked at my dad, trying to keep my voice steady. "So Jake gets his girlfriend behind closed doors, but Mark and I sleep in separate rooms?" My dad's face turned red. "That's different," he snapped. "He's a boy and you're my daughter. I don't want another word about it." It wasn't about morality. It was about trust. He didn't trust me, his adult daughter, the way he trusted my teenage brother. He expected me to just nod, take the guest room, and let him play the hero tomorrow. But as I sat there, looking at the man I had respected my entire life, something shifted. I wasn't going to fight him. I was going to do something much worse. Mark didn't know about any of this. He was sitting in the living room, oblivious to the fact that my dad was currently treating me like a grounded teenager. I could have just told Mark the rule. He's a great guy. He would have laughed it off and slept in the guest room without a single complaint. But this wasn't about Mark. It was about the utter disrespect. I realized that if I accepted this arrangement, I was validating my dad's double standard. I was telling him that he could treat me like a child, humiliate me, and still get the satisfaction of being the generous dad who drives us to the airport. No, I wanted to make everyone comfortable, and the only way to do that was to remove the problem entirely. I pulled out my phone and checked the GPS from my apartment to the airport. 45 minutes. It meant waking up at 2 in the morning instead of 3. It meant paying for long-term parking. It was inconvenient, expensive, and exhausting, but it was mine. I took a deep breath, stood up from the dinner table, and walked back into the living room. I walk into the living room where Mark is chatting with my mom. I grab my purse and tap him on the shoulder. "Hey, we're gonna head back to my place tonight," I say, keeping my voice completely casual. Mark looks confused, but stands up anyway. My dad walks in from the kitchen, wiping his hands on a towel. He stops dead in his tracks. "What are you doing?" he asks, his eyebrows pulling together. "You need to be asleep in 3 hours." "We're going to my apartment," I say, zipping my jacket. We'll just drive ourselves to the airport tomorrow." My dad's face drops. The savior complex is instantly shattered. He isn't getting his hero moment. He isn't getting to control the logistics. "Are you kidding me?" he demands, his voice rising. "You're going to drive 45 minutes at 3 in the morning just to throw a tantrum?" He steps between us and the front door, genuinely furious. "I'm not throwing a tantrum," I reply, my voice completely flat. My hands are shaking a little, but I keep my posture perfectly straight. "You offered a favor with a condition. I'm just declining the favor." "I want to be the one to drive you," he yells, completely ignoring my logic. "Why are you making such a massive deal out of a guest room?" This is the moment. I look upstairs toward my brother's bedroom, then back at my dad. The room goes completely quiet. My mom stops moving. Mark just stands there, finally realizing what's happening. I look my dad dead in the eyes. "I'm respecting your roof by not being under it." His mouth opens, but nothing comes out. The hypocrisy is hanging in the air so heavily you could cut it with a knife. He has no counter-argument, no defense. I don't wait for him to find one. I open the front door, walk out into the cold night air, and Mark follows right behind me. We don't look back. We drove back to my apartment in heavy silence. At 2:30 in the morning, my alarm went off. We dragged our suitcases to my Honda, drove 45 minutes in the pitch black, and paid $80 for a week of long-term parking. It honestly sucked. I was completely exhausted before the vacation even started. But when I finally sat down at the terminal gate, I checked my phone. I had 3 missed calls and a massive text from my dad. He didn't apologize, of course. He just said he was deeply disappointed that I chose to complicate things over a simple, harmless rule. My mom texted me privately later that day. She said my dad had stayed up until 4 in the morning, sitting alone in the living room, just waiting to see if I would text him that we made it safely. He was genuinely hurt that I didn't let him do his fatherly duty. And honestly, knowing he sat there in the dark, worried about me, I felt a sharp pang of guilt. I know it sounds crazy, he was being a huge hypocrite, but he's still my dad, and he really does love me. Maybe driving myself was a petty way to handle it. Maybe I should have just slept in the stupid guest room for 4 hours to keep the peace. But peace at the cost of my dignity isn't peace at all. Sometimes the only way to win a rigged game is to refuse to play. So, what do you guys think? Was I too harsh on my dad for just trying to enforce his old-school rules, or did he completely deserve to lose his hero moment? Let me know in the comments. Hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.